Hello, I'm Robin Young.
And I'm Erie Chapman. Welcome to Life Choices.
Yeah.
Finally, a new tool for Alzheimer's patients on videotape.
It's like having a friend that that's talking to him, and he responds to her real good, and he just really enjoys it. And I think he would watch it over and over, all day long.
And have you heard that the black man who invented blood banks died because of racism?
Dr. Charles Drew was the first doctor who created blood plasma. He also died in Atlanta because they would not give him blood.
Well, it's not true.
Nothing could have helped him survive because of his injuries. But the myth grew, and the irony of the myth allowed it to persist.
This is Life Choices with Erie Chapman, Robin Young, and America's Health Team.
There's a famous story that's been floating around for years about the African-American doctor who discovered how to make blood banks work. As the story goes, he died after a car accident because he was denied a transfusion in an all-white hospital. It's an amazing, ironic story, and it's not true. We'll tell you the real story in a few minutes.
But first, there's a new tool out there for Alzheimer's patients and for the people that take care of them. Guess what? It's not a medication, it's a videotape. And our Life Choices correspondent, Jennifer Laird, will explain.
And he says, just don't leave me. He says, I don't want you to leave me. Please don't leave me. So I promised him that I wouldn't. Okay?
Yes, sir.
When Vera Faulkner married her husband Mel 54 years ago, she knew it was forever. What she didn't know was that part of their forever included Alzheimer's. Mel was diagnosed with it 5 years ago.
He feeds himself, and when he shaves himself with his electric razor, but I have to stay in there with him because if I don't, he forgets, and he puts his razor up in his hair. He's going to shave his hair or his eyebrows or something, so I do have to, watch him.
Mel is now more like a child. He requires constant care and supervision. But Vera Faulkner recently found a helper, and Mel a new best friend.
Do you know who else loves those wonderful flowers?
Her name is Marianne Schwartz,
Insects.
and she's on videotape.
When I'm working in my garden, there are always insects flying around.
And yeah, they
There
are.
are those bees.
All around every ways.
And those butterflies floating around. And of course, there are those pesky flies.
My name is Marilyn. You know, you look very nice today.
I doubt it. Thank you.
Do I look nice?
Millie Spencer has a new friend, too. Marilyn helps Millie escape from the loneliness of her dementia.
Wow.
Okay.
Okay.
Are you ready to sing?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, give me a home.
It's a pretty simple idea, a friend on tape. Great for the patient, but even better for the family. Just ask Millie's daughter, Thana.
You get them up in the morning, you get their clothes, you make sure that you get their dirty clothes, you turn on the shower for them, you hand them the soap, you show them the shampoo. I have to put the shampoo on my mother's hair because, she gets a little confused. We could probably use a few more carrots.
Okay, where are
Okay, they're right here.
Okay.
These are carrots. I can't talk to her, 10 hours a day because there's times when I don't want to talk, There's times I want to be by myself. Leave me alone, get out of my face, I want to be in a different room.
Can you still hear me all right?
Very well, thank you.
Look what I have here today.
Vera and Thana have both found a series of videotapes aptly named Video Respite. The recordings are designed to occupy impaired patients so the caregivers can get just that, respite.
It's a dog, and her name is Rover.
It gives me time to do what I want to do. Do you know what I mean? I can, like I said, I can sit her down for 2 hours and I don't have to hear, Thana, where are you? And I don't mind, but there are times you do, because you need personal space. And
the videotapes are the brainchildren of Dr. Dale Lund and a team of researchers from the University of Utah.
The goal there was simply, can we occupy the time of an impaired person? And if they're occupied, then the caregiver has some free time finally. The free time to make a phone call, take a warm bath, write a letter to a friend, prepare a meal, to do anything that you and I and everyone else takes for granted.
Do you remember the most popular dance in the Roaring Twenties? It was a wild dance called the Charleston.
So far, there are 10 versions of Video Respite designed to cover all walks of life. This one's designed to bring back memories of the 20s. There's a tape for Jewish Americans, a tape for African Americans, a version for sports fans, a tape for homemakers that talks about cooking, a tape geared toward men that reminisces about cars, baseball, even first dates. All based on the premise that though short-term memory, the memory of yesterday, is lost forever, the memories of growing up are often the last to go. Memories that can still be recalled with the help of a gentle, well-spoken, and interested video friend.
That was great. You were great.
People can't distinguish between a real person, as I understand it from a lay perspective, can't distinguish between a real person and a person on the TV.
Lonnie Wallen is no stranger to Alzheimer's and its demands. He co-founded the National Alzheimer's Association after watching his father die of the disease. Lonnie says that these tapes are going to change the way patients are cared for.
In the old days, patients were tied down to wheelchairs so that they couldn't do any damage or wander. So there were a lot of horror stories which existed, which a simple tape might be able to alleviate. It seems to work extremely well. And it's not the total answer, but it is a very important contribution towards that answer.
Raise your arms a little bit.
And not only is Video Respite a help to the caregiver, Dr. Lund is finding many benefits for the Alzheimer's patient as well.
We're finding that there are potentially therapeutic effects. That we've seen people sit down and they're angry and they're agitated and they're upset, which are also common traits for many people with Alzheimer's. They watch the tape and they see this warm, caring person talking to them, and they engage them in song and great memories. Before you know it, they're calmed down.
What is it about Marianne that keeps Mel riveted for so long? Nobody really knows.
Most experts would say you just cannot maintain your attention for very long because they wander off, they can't stay focused on anything. So the goal initially was to create a videotape that might work for 10, maybe if we're lucky, 15 minutes. Our goals are extended way beyond that. For example, one of our tapes is 53 minutes, and you know that provides some real opportunity.
I love you.
These tapes are being used not just by individual caregivers, but by nursing homes and daycare centers.
What is that? It's a rooster.
They seem to work just as well for groups as for individuals. It's important to remember, though, says Dr. Lund, that the tapes are not meant to replace the caregiver, just to provide temporary relief for everyone.
She feels like she's got her best friend sitting there talking to her, and she loves it. It lifts her spirits. She doesn't remember why, she's feeling good afterwards much. But there's a big difference in her.
Happy birthday to you. She cute.
Oh, that was so much fun.
Mm-hmm. Very powerful. And if you'd like to receive more information about these wonderful videotapes, you can write to Innovative Caregiving Resources. They're at Post Office Box 17332, Salt Lake City, Utah, zip code 84117. Or you can call them. They're at 801-272-9446. We'll give you all of this information again at the end of the program, and we'll be right back.
You may remember that last season we introduced you to a remarkable woman, a woman in her 50s who found herself with a form of early onset Alzheimer's. Your response to her was so strong that we thought we'd let you know how she's doing. When we introduced you to Diane McGowan, she was only 56 years old, but despite her relatively young age, Alzheimer's was silently and relentlessly stealing her memory and her mind.
My body is fine, but my brain has sustained a disease that can strike any age and is taking away my intellect.
What the disease couldn't steal was her courage. Refusing to go down without a fight, Diane resolved to tell the unvarnished truth about her downward spiraling journey.
I'm aware that there's a little bit less of me. Sometimes it's each day than the day before. But I can't just acquiesce and let that happen. And if I continue to work at the word processor, I'm doing something about this.
The result of her effort was the book Living in the Labyrinth, the first to chronicle the personal descent of an Alzheimer's patient. Now Diane's writing a new book about her state of mind, and her life is the subject of an upcoming made-for-TV movie starring Jessica Lange. Diane's hoping it will help make more people compassionate towards those suffering with this disease.
It's like having AIDS. Because as soon as people hear it, they treat you differently. You remember our first walk here?
Yep. Remember Richard? He was one of the first members of Diane's support group for younger Alzheimer's patients.
In my life, I quested for beauty, but God has sent me to the sea for pearls. That's it. Thank you.
Today, Richard is in a home for people who can no longer take care of themselves. In fact, all of the original members of Diane's support group are either in homes like Richard or have passed away. But Diane says new members have taken their place.
Come on, Badessa, find a sand dollar for me.
Okay.
Although Diane isn't deteriorating as quickly as some of her friends, her bravado is beginning to fade. Sometimes she can't remember why she's fighting so hard. But here's what she told us 1 year ago.
I want to feel that no matter what happens to me, I will have made a difference. A difference while I'm here for the people I meet and affect, and a difference that I hope will last even after I'm gone if I'm not fortunate.
And our very best wishes go with this courageous woman and to everyone out there dealing with the challenge of Alzheimer's. Well, now it's time for you to make the choice. This week the question is, appropriately, about Alzheimer's disease. Here's the question. How old was the youngest person ever diagnosed with Alzheimer's? Is the answer 28, 38, or 48 years old? And we'll give you the answer when we come back.
Coming up, the myth that won't go away.
Drew? Was his name Drew?
What happened to him?
Well, he died because he wasn't able to receive blood that, or the plasma that he had invented.
Okay, we left you with the following question. How old was the youngest person ever diagnosed with Alzheimer's? Is the answer 28, 38, or 48 years old? Well, the correct answer is 28 years old. Amazing, huh?
And I didn't get it right. Well, our next story is about Dr. Charles Drew. You may have heard about him. He's the African-American scientist whose discoveries about blood chemistry led to modern blood banks, saving millions of lives. His life is pretty well documented. So is his death. But don't believe everything you read. Here's correspondent Lisa Arledge.
It's because of this man that we have blood banks today. Back in the 40s, Dr. Charles Drew discovered that plasma could be used for transfusions. Unlike whole blood, it could be stored for later use. That meant that if you needed a transfusion, the donor no longer had to be right there, hooked up next to you. Most people know that Dr. Drew was black, and they also know the irony of his fate.
Dr. Charles Drew was the first doctor who created blood plasma. He also died in Atlanta because they would not give him blood.
Had a car accident and wasn't able to get the transfusion because of his race.
Well, he died because he wasn't able to receive blood that, or the plasma that he had invented.
This particularly cruel twist of fate is pretty well documented. All you have to do is look it up. Here's what Time magazine said. He ironically bled to death after he was injured in a car crash and was turned away by an all-white hospital. Or you might have heard about it on an old sitcom rerun.
You ever hear of Dr. Charles Drew, soldier?
Who's that?
Dr. Drew invented the process for separating blood so it can be stored.
Plasma.
He died last April after a car accident in North Carolina.
He bled to death. The hospital wouldn't let him in.
It was for whites only.
See you, fella.
Who says TV isn't occasionally educational? The story about how Dr. Drew died has been told over and over again, and understandably contributes to the fact that most blacks don't give blood.
There's this belief that African Americans don't necessarily get to blood when they need it, that there is an A group of people and a B group of people, and if there's a shortage, the A group will receive the blood first, and that African Americans unfortunately don't belong to that A list.
It's an amazing story. The man who changed the face of the blood banking industry dying because he was denied blood. Except for one thing, it's not true.
Councilmember Jarvis. Councilmember
Washington, D.C. Councilwoman Charlene Drew Jarvis ought to know. She's Dr. Drew's daughter, and she wants to set the record straight.
He was badly injured. He was taken to Alamance County Hospital, where he was treated for his injuries. Nothing could have helped him survive because of his injuries. But the myth grew, and the irony of the myth allowed it to persist.
Charlene says her father was given at least one blood transfusion by a team of white doctors. Her mother wrote a letter thanking them, even though they couldn't save his life. The hospital was segregated. Dr. Drew was black, but the care he received was excellent.
It says, "Dear Dr. Brooks, please accept our many thanks for the efforts extended by you and your staff on April 1st in an attempt to save the life of Dr. Charles R. Drew. I've always known the truth, and I've always reported the truth if asked. I never, however, really proselytized so that people would change their thinking, because the South was really truly guilty of discrimination against African Americans at that time, and I wasn't anxious to relieve the South of its guilt about its treatment."
It's no accident that so many people believe the myth. Given the injustices of the past, it makes perfect sense.
The irony of that story, though a myth, is one that has persisted because of the symbolism.
Charlene is traveling the country, retelling her father's story, the real one, in an effort to convince more blacks to donate blood and bone marrow.
Each of us has now an opportunity to save a life by a simple procedure. I can't think of another way that we could possibly have such a call to save a life.
Of the more than 1 million people listed with the National Marrow Donor Program, only 6% are black. And for bone marrow transplants in particular, it's critical for the donor and the recipient to be of the same ethnic background. Otherwise, there's less chance of a medical match.
We're talking about life and death. This is not a philosophical issue. It is not an issue on which we can wax and wane about what happened to us in the past and unwillingness to participate because we remember the inequity of the past. This is a here and now question of whether or not each of us is going to save the lives of other of us.
Very interesting and educational.
Thank you.
In her own way, Charlene Drew Jarvis is saving lives, just like her father.
It seems to me an extraordinary opportunity for me personally to continue a legacy of a man whose mission was to save lives, and that's why I do it.
And Robin, Charlene Drew Jarvis's program of increased awareness appears to be working. Since we first brought you this story last season, the number of African Americans who have signed up for the National Marrow Donor Registry has increased by 57%.
And if you would like to get listed on that registry, call 1-800-MARROW, or MARROW 2. And we'll be right back. One final program note. Next time here on Life Choices, to get ahead at work, lots of women have postponed having children until they were a little older. But have they waited too long? That's next time.
Until then, Robin and I would like you to remember that life is choices, so choose well.
If you would like to write us here at Life Choices, our address is P.O. Box 555, Columbus, Ohio, 43216. For a transcript of today's program, send $5 to Life Choices, P.O. Box 7, Livingston, New Jersey, 07039. Please refer to the subject matter and the date the program aired.
One final program note, next time here on Life Choices, to get ahead at work, lots of women have postponed having children until they were a little older. But have they waited too long? That's next time.
Until then, Robin and I would like you to remember that life is choices, so choose well.
If you would like to write us here at Life Choices, our address is P.O. Box 555, Columbus, Ohio, 43216.